And one I really love, actually,
Mhm.
and it's a commercial photograph made for commercial purposes, but the paper cutting image from Stoneywood in Aberdeen, I think it's a fantastic image, and that one combined with the cooperage of whiskey barrels.
Yes. This one.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, this, yes, I must admit, this I think is quite possibly one of, I think along with the curling photo, I think, this is probably also as a photographer, a kind of photographer's favorite with this photo. It's the light in it is just astonishingly beautiful. And what works really well with this part of it is the backlight. It's the fact that you've got this light coming through the doorway behind is what gives it the depth. If it was just a closed door and everything just disappeared into the shadow, it wouldn't have anything like the same amount of effect. It's like one of those little tricks. If you're ever photographing a forest, you've always got this problem that it gets darker as it goes on down. So if you're standing looking at this row of trees, you only get the front of the trees. But if there's light behind, if there's an opening, a gap further back in the forest, and there's light behind the trees, suddenly your forest picture springs to life in a way that it just doesn't. And this is the same kind of thing. Because there's a light coming through behind, it gives real depth to this picture. So the use of light, I think, is fantastic. But then the diagonals again, that sense of movement. And again, one of those things, I mean, while I suppose this is probably a mix of posed and documentary, the guy will have set up with his camera and said, okay, carry on now, or stop for a moment. These guys are cleaning the inside of the barrels or whatever it is they're doing. There's another bit, which is when you're trying to capture movement and you're not wanting people to be blurred, you have to try and get the still moment in any. So if these people are circling round, going round the barrel as they're scrubbing, you need to go click at the point where they're at the peak, either when their arm is at most extended or when their arm is most pulled back, just before it starts moving up again. If you get it when they're sort of halfway round, the arm is going to blur. It sort of slows down there, speeds up, slows down, speeds up, slows down. And so you kind of need to get your timing right to maximize the fact that actually they still feel quite still, while at the same time being in a pose where you really get a sense of movement and power and energy going into those barrels.
And both of these images in their own ways remind me, and in slightly different ways, remind me of that sort of famous Lewis Hine image of the worker with this big bit of machinery, and it's sort of a man versus machine kind of sensibility to it. But this is another one in which, it's that has to be that moment, and it's just the tips of his fingers rested right there, and and the light, the light sort of pouring through onto the whiteness of the paper.
Again, you've got that little light patch back here, which helps to give definition to, and likewise these rolls of paper in the background here, just so that it's not total shadow behind. These bits here help give definition to the foreground as well.